Guys, it's the 2020 KTM Super Duke. Now, as you might know, I love the Super Duke. I mean, okay, it doesn't love me, obviously. In fact, it said it was gonna rip my liver out and make me watch it, eat it. But you know, I love it anyway, and I'm sure I can make it change. Yeah. What we indeed have here is KTM's newest gruesome assassin, following a long line of Super Duke mass slaughterers.
It's funny that you'll never forget the first time you rode a Super Duke, that feeling of sheer terror. That feeling that this bike, it's not just like media hype, this thing wants to kill you. It actually wants you dead. That is the feeling riding a Super Duke.
Upon first glance, it is clear that KTM has continued the theme of the Super Duke. A bike they are still keen to point out was built from the ground up as a naked bike, and not some defrocked sports bike. However, there is something different about this one. Look at the way this bike looks, where the previous models were a little bit sort of more sit up and beg. This one looks kind of somehow lower, sleeker, kind of sharper, like it's sort of crouched down, ready to sort of pounce on its prey, and sort of angry. No, I'm sorry. No, just, I'll tell you what, I'll make you a sandwich, okay? Just. Part of the new angular front is down to the larger new air intake situated between the twin headlights. It's an obvious place for it really, as it is where the air is mostest. From there, the air is channeled through the headstock and into a larger airbox, one made so much larger that it has stolen 0.5 of a litre from the fuel tank. This caused a bit of a riff, and the two haven't spoken since. The effect of the air intake and the airbox is now a pucker ram air system and much more air filling those giant 1301cc V-twin lungs. Of course, what goes in must come out, and that means a bigger exhaust system. Look at the size of them, eh? And today's a cold day, so... The results of these airflow streaming efforts is an increase of 3 horsepower, making the tally 180, with 114 Newton meters of torque to back that up. However, as is the nature of the Super Duke, it's not all about the max figures, but rather the torque throughout the curve, with this model surmounting the 100 Newton meter mark at just 3,500 RPM. The effect is profound.
Second gear.
The Super Duke is still the beast it always has been, although KTM seem to have put a good deal of effort into making all this death and destruction work more for the rider rather than just causing an instant death.
So 3 more horsepower, and yet somehow it's I don't know, it's like every time they make one of these things, they make it more civilized. It's like they're taking the rampant gorilla out of the jungle, teaching it to be a better fighter and to be a gentleman at the same time. It still is the same gorilla. It will rip your throat out, but it'll do it by while saying, "How do you do?" It is fast though.
Part of the fancy new suit and mannerisms is down to a new 6-axis IMU, up from the previous 5-axis model, meaning more accurate electronics. You toggle them through a completely new set of switches and a new TFT dash. But the real changes come from the totally revised chassis that now has 3 times the torsional rigidity of the previous model and a completely revised geometry.
Now previously the Super Duke felt like some kind of muscle bike, road bike, that was pretty good on the track. You know, you could take it around the track, but it was a little bit lumpy in handling. The front was a bit floaty, you know, so not great, but a lot of fun, you know what I mean? Whereas the Aprilia Tuono, that was a track bike. If you wanted a naked bike to go blasting around the track, embarrassing the super bikes, you got a Tuono. However, this, I don't know anymore. This feels damn good. Damn good.
More so, the Super Duke makes use of lighter wheels, completely revised WP suspension, a new linkage on the rear shock, plus a new bodywork that provides downforce on the front wheel, and a tail where the composite bodywork acts as a reinforcing structure.
It's so light and nimble, so easy to turn. And that. Also mid-corner, like here, it's so stable, before it felt like the front was kind of getting a bit wobbly, a bit weavy, like, okay, I'm not liking this. Now this is just like, give me more, give me more, give me more. This is fun. Last week we rode S1000 RRs, Panigale V4s, all of those things. I have a tremendous amount of respect for those bikes. You know, if you treat them well, they will reward you, but you have to treat them well. This, on the other hand, is just, come, let's go do something naughty. It's just prodding you. Come, let's go do something fun. It's just fun. You're not going to break lap records on this thing. They'll save that to the super bikes, but you're going to smile a lot. You're going to smile and smile and smile, and the checker fan's going to come out and you're going to go, oh, already? Oh, do we have to? It's a Super Duke. It's a Super Duke. I love Super Dukes.
Well, it's no surprise to me at all that Don loves the Super Duke, because he's always loved the Super Duke. No matter what we said to him, he could never find any fault with it, and I'm going to presume that it's more of the same, is it, Don?
No, okay. I always used to love the Super Duke, but the Super Duke never loved me. I mean, it was just too murderous and kind of heartless and psychopathic. However, now, after all this time, since 2014, I think the Super Duke finally loves me back. Oh, it's such a warm and happy feeling.
Okay, well, listen, the Super Duke has always kind of made its reputation based around a mad, bonkers, nearly 1.3 litres of incredible V-twin, it has to be said. I could never argue against that. It was an absolute beast. That pretty much remains the same then, does it?
It does, but you know, what KTM keeps doing with the Super Duke, instead of trying to give it more power, they keep kind of refining the power they have. So it's exactly the same sort of beast, but as I said in the piece, kind of wearing a bit more of a suit now. So it'll still give you that sort of, that rush and that laughter and that sort of madness, but you're kind of more in control of it. It's not sort of, it's not riding you, you're riding it, one of those sort of things.
Well, one of the biggest arguments that myself and Don have had over the past few years has been which naked bike, because we both love sporty naked bikes. He would always take the Super Duke and call me an inferior fool for wanting the 2.0 from Aprilia. And likewise, he was an absolute bumbling buffoon for wanting the Super Duke. Now, the Aprilia has a howling V4 engine, distinctive in its own right, but not quite the same beast as the KTM, but it always had the better chassis. Am I led to believe then, Don, that the KTM has perhaps matched the Aprilia at least?
Well, okay, before, the KTM was fun on a track, but not necessarily the best. Not for, like, if you want to embarrass superbikes and do lap times. No, then even I had to admit, go to the 2.0. I love the Super Duke because of just the way it made you feel, not because of the lap times. However, now I'm not sure. You know what I mean? It was obvious before. Now if I'm going to try and find out which is the better track tool, I'd have to actually ride them together. I mean, that's how much better the handling on that Super Duke is. It's such a vast improvement. It really is.
Okay, well, that is an impressive improvement then for the KTM. Its main competitors are the Aprilia, as we've just mentioned, and another one that hasn't quite hit South African shores as yet. You can blame the pandemic, as we blame it for everything, but it's a little bit late in arriving in South Africa. Ducati's V4 Street Fighter. That will have more horsepower, but right at the top end, so I have a feeling it will be a very different type of beast to ride, and is rumoured to probably cost in the region of 300,000 Rand or so. Now, where does the KTM stack up?
Well, okay. First of all, the Street Fighter is arriving in South Africa at the end of July, so yeah, it's on its way. I think it's actually on a ship as we speak. I'm 100% sure that Street Fighter is going to be more than 300,000 Rand. Whereas the Super Duke, obviously the factories felt sorry for us poor South Africans. It's retailing now for 265,000 Rand. So yeah, the Street Fighter is more than 200 horsepower, the Super Duke not. It used to be the king of horsepower of naked bikes, it's not anymore, but now it's sort of king of price. And I've got to say, the way that Super Duke makes power, I mean, 100 Newton meters from 3,500 RPM, I still think even though it won't win the sort of top end drag race, it might still be a little bit more fun to ride. We'll have to see though.
I look forward to that because Donovan, I think it's fair to say, his two favourite brands, his two favourite marks in the whole wide world are Ducati and KTM. So his head will probably explode when he tests them both against each other and he simply won't be able to make up his mind. He'd better start thinking about robbing a bank if he ever hopes to solve that particular problem. Right, we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll be looking at some of the latest news in the world of motorcycling.